Good morning, everyone. How's everybody's morning doing? I just woke up and I wanted to do a video. I've been wanting to do this video for a little while now. I ain't done it, and now I'm going to drop it. But before I do that, if you like this content, if you like this video, by all means, hit that like, hit that subscribe button. It's absolutely free. It helps this channel out, and that way you always get updated videos when they drop. You know they drop because it notifies you right off the get-go. Also, feel free to put comments down below about the subject matter or other subject matters of what you want to talk about. I promise you that I will talk to you about them. That all being said, I'm sure many of you heard it's been about 3 to 4 weeks since The Undertaker was on Joe Rogan's show. I think it's called Joe Rogan's Experience or something like that. And the article came out saying that Undertaker calls today's locker room soft compared to the old locker room that he grew up in. And you hear that a lot. You know, how's the locker room different? Any Attitude Era guy, even Ruthless Aggression Era guy, they ask, how is the locker room different today than it was when you was in the locker room? And Undertaker came out and said, today's locker room is soft. And that's how this article started, by saying, Undertaker says this locker room is soft. But what they left out was the Undertaker talking about, he thinks this locker room is soft in today's world because you never would have seen guys sitting around playing video games. Today's locker room is all about looking pretty. They get themselves, makeup or eyeliner, or they do their hair or whatever to make themselves look really good. Back when Undertaker was in a locker room, he said it was a men's locker room. It was a locker room of men. Guys had knives. Guys had guns. They did play chords. He was a chord player. But it wasn't about looking good or spiffing yourself up. And here's the thing. I can see Undertaker's point. And I would say Undertaker probably was not taking a shot. But he did say, hey, this is going to make some people mad. But it needs to be said. I can see where people in today's locker room would get upset about that. John Cena got upset about it, saying that he doesn't feel the same way, that the locker room is soft. When Undertaker said it was soft, I don't think he meant it as in these men are not men. He's talking about how the locker room has changed. Stone Cold Steve Austin was on First Take and was asked about the comparing today's locker room to during his time, and Austin's answer was pretty well put. Austin's a very good talker on talk shows and things like that, and he said that the locker room has changed because back then it was more grittier. I've heard him talk about it on his podcast on not the Broken Skull Sessions, but the Stone Cold Steve Austin podcast. Not the Broken Skull Sessions of which you hear on the WWE Network. I've heard it said, Big Show is very vocal about the changing in today's society and today's locker room. A lot of people, Big Show says, a lot of people's just happy to be there. And he's not the only veteran to say this. A lot of people, they're just happy to be there. There's no desire. The desire to get better is not there. And he's talking about the majority. Because he did say there are some guys still left in the locker room that, they're fighting to be the top. They're fighting to get there. They're willing to take chances. A lot of guys are just happy to be there. Vince McMahon tells them to do something. Paul Heyman was on Stone Cold's podcast, and Paul Heyman went on to explain that, guys are not going to take risks. And then Steve Austin went on to say, when he first got hired into WWE, he had to be the ringmaster. It was a foot in the door. He hated the gimmick, hated the character, didn't want to work with it. The only plus side was he was working with Ted DiBiase. And they wanted him to wear this green singlet. And Austin said, look, I'm not wearing the singlet. And so they came up with some trunks, and it was a green trunks. But he said, yeah, and he wore them he gave him a shot for about 2 weeks, and then he said he went back to his black trunks. But Paul Heyman gave him credit saying, Today's kids, today's wrestlers, they won't even, they would never make it past a singlet. They, meaning, they're never going to put their own twist on their characters, or they don't feel comfortable putting a twist on the characters. Drew McIntyre is an exception. If you've watched any documentary here lately with Drew McIntyre in it, he's not afraid to tell him what he wants his character to do. And that's what you got to do. Steve Austin says plenty of times, you have to build a relationship with the old man, talking about Vince. I think a lot of kids, a lot of wrestlers, I should say, are scared to voice their opinion about their character to Vince or the creative team. Or they do and they get told no, and instead of trying to push a little bit harder, they just say, okay, I'm just going to do it where you want me to do it then. You got to have that hunger. Kurt Angle also talked about today's locker room, saying that, back, they're catered to a whole lot more. So this can go right along with Undertaker was saying about being soft. But he wasn't calling the locker room soft. He said they're just catered to a whole lot more. From the diet to the exercise. And this is inside the arena, by the way. The facility in which they are at. He said back when he was wrestling, it was a meal from like 1 to 3, and if you missed it, too bad. But now there's a meal there all the time, during the whole show, during the whole day, that you can always get something to eat. But back in his day, it was like, you missed it, too bad. Also, back then you could keep things secret and fight through an injury. You could bang up your knee, not know if it was serious, and not have to talk to the medical staff. Now you bang up your knee, you're at least going to miss out on a week or whatever to make sure that nothing serious is going wrong, which is not a bad thing. I want to point that out. That's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing to have to get your knee looked at and for the doctors to go, well, we'll give you a week off. You're still getting paid. You just ain't getting to get them before them. It's not a bad thing. Now, as far as my understanding, the way I've never been in the locker room, so I'm not going to say whether or not today's locker room is soft. I can tell you that the society has changed. I can tell you that the society is not as gritty as it used to be. So rightfully, the locker room in WWE obviously has changed along with the times. They do things better for the athletes. They look out for the athletes better, I feel. Who cares if they're playing video games? I play video games. Does it mean I'm soft? No. Once again, I don't think The Undertaker meant any offense to it as far as saying that everyone is soft. But he just don't agree with what they do now in the locker room. He doesn't agree with it, is I think what he was trying to really get at. So tell me what you guys think. Is today's locker room soft? Do you agree with The Undertaker? Or are you on John Cena's side? Or are you on Kurt Angle's side? Tell me what you guys think. Hit that like, hit that subscribe. And we'll be dropping more videos as we go along here. You guys have a very good and blessed day.